Good evening, good day, everyone, and compliments of the day in whichever part of the world you're connected or where you're connecting from. It's glad to have you here. For the technical uh, persons or guys in the house, when we get to security operations, you will find, you will be well served, I can assure you. But for the non-technical, the administrative, managerial, personnel, I'm not a tech type, or I don't want to do advanced tech. GRC and data privacy says you're right. Now, a disclaimer. GRC and data privacy are not the only capabilities in that aspect of cybersecurity. I'm not a tech type. I'm new to tech. The tech is difficult. I don't want to do this in tech, You're welcome. There's so much more than GRC and data privacy for you. For instance, we got identity access management. Yes, and it's part of defensive, we call it defensive security. For those of you joining the class, maybe for the first time or you joined us yesterday, you didn't join us last week, I want to reiterate again that cybersecurity is across two lines. The two lines of skill sets, two lines of capabilities, two lines of proficiency or competence. There is the defensive security, also called the blue team. There is the offensive security called the red team. The technical aspect of cybersecurity, when we say the tech in cybersecurity, is the offensive security. There is tech too in defensive security, but you know what I mean tech. When you say I'm a tech expert, I'm like you're a software developer, a network engineer, a network administrator, a computer engineer, an IT support specialist, those tech, the really heart of tech. Defensive security has all the languages there, the jargons there. Offensive security's got all the jargons there. So you will be very much at home if you're on that, if you are the tech expert, if you are a practitioner, a practicing tech expert. But for the newbie to tech who want to get into the world of tech through cybersecurity, and you're not interested in the techie part of tech, you know what I mean by the techie part of tech. I'm talking about defensive security. So that's what serves you right. And GRC in cybersecurity, the data privacy and protection, identity and access management, and so much more is a part of the areas of capabilities you may want to tilt to. It might not be feasible on our part to take you through these areas of capabilities. To master you on these areas of capabilities within the limited time we got. It's a 6-hour program, and across, I say 6 hours, I'm sorry, 12 hours program across 6 days. So we may not be able to touch all there is. But the reason why we premised this journey on just fundamentals, GRC, data privacy, and security operations is because that is what is in now. These are the core aspects on the job that people really go into or specialize on whenever they come to the world of cybersecurity. And I like to put it here that what you're having is just the essentials. If you want to have the full dose of these capabilities, Skill to Pro Academy has a program, or has got programs for these areas of capability. We got Cybersecurity GRC analyst as a program. We got cybersecurity data privacy and protection analyst as a program. Then we got cybersecurity, security operations and defense as a program. And we have it at analyst level, we have it at specialist level, and we have it at professional level. At that level, professional level, that is where you'll be taking certifications. And trainings are lab-oriented. Just as you saw a use case yesterday, that was, a very simple use case. And you did not analyze it, so it was already analyzed, and we just went through the reports. But in our practicals, our training programs, we do the analysis together and then give you capstone projects that you will be doing. Then also use tools, software, that would mean, and we expose you to work papers, like in the light of risk assessments, compliance, and the likes. So you do well by deciding on time to enroll for any of these programs. Is a career path. You're not just coming to master cybersecurity generally, coming to take a career path and grow on it. On a global scale, there are job opportunities, both physical on-sites and remote for these areas of specialization in cybersecurity. So please, you do well by enrolling and enrolling on time. The class will be starting soon. So once you enroll, the admin or the secretariat of Skito Pro Academy will contact you and furnish you with relevant information. So let's continue where we stopped yesterday. We looked at, we've so far looked at governance and risk management in the light of cybersecurity. We want to look at compliance. Compliance in cybersecurity. Cybersecurity as a practice, as a system. Yes, a control system, a security system, a both digital, logical, technical, and physical system, both offensive and defensive within an organization's infrastructure, IT infrastructure. There is the need for compliance. So let's look at compliance. Like it sounds grammatically, compliance. So let's look at it. Cybersecurity compliance. Once again, can I get a thumbs up? Just to be sure, I hope you still hear me. Just give me a quick feedback. So let's get into it. Quick feedback that you can hear me and it's clear at your end. Okay, thank you, Dekunle. Thank you, Rashidat. Thank you for that. So let's get into today's class and have the full dose. Compliance, like it connotes. Anytime you hear the word compliance, what comes to your mind? Law, adherence. That is, there is a law that you are meant to adhere to. You are meant to obey. You are meant to, or a policy, a standard, a framework, a regulation that you are meant to what? To comply with or to adhere to as a matter of necessity, right? That's what we call compliance. Like you can find on the screen, on the slide, the process of an organization aligning its security practices with relevant laws, regulations, and industry standards. As a matter of fact, compliance starts with the organization's policy, the organization's procedures, the organization's guideline. That is the beginning of compliance. Now, it is not enough to say we are complying. There has to be an evidence to that claim. I hope you again, I'm trying to build a body of knowledge around compliance now. It has to be First thing first, in compliance, the first thing that comes to mind is there is a law or there is a necessity. A necessary law, regulation, standards, these are external or framework, or policies, procedures, guidelines, and the likes that are internal to the organization, formulated by, strategically formulated and developed by the leadership of an institution. Then the next thing is adherence. That's manpower and the entire system and its operations are adhering with these stipulations, these issuances, and then evidences to support that claim. Are you in compliance with the law? Yes. The burden of evidence is on you to provide or substantiate that claim. It has become a necessity on a global scale that we comply by way of organizational practice. Our corporate operations must comply with some stipulations. These stipulations might be industry-based. These stipulations might be national, might be regional. These stipulations, they may be law, regulations, or standards. They might be national, they might be statewide, they might be even be global. So because we got these stipulations and they become a necessity, we have no choice but to do what? Comply with them. Now, I'm saying we because an ideal way to understand compliance, including data privacy and protection, is to personalize it. Yes, one of the ideal ways to grasp the nitty-gritty of compliance is to personalize it. So I'm going to be using we. I mean, all of us on this call, in this session, in this class, we're going to be using we in the journey so we can, this is our responsibility. I hope you get that. Compliance is the responsibility, and it is generic. Everyone's got to align with it. It means our corporate operations, our corporate activities got to be performed or executed in line with these specifics or stipulations. It is also said that it involves implementing security controls such as access management, encryption, and the likes to meet specifics like HIPAA for health sector in the US, GDPR, HIPAA is for its Health Information Portability and Accountability Act. Like GDPR, we're going to talk about this when we get, this journey, and also when we get to data privacy. General Data Protection Regulation in Europe, domesticated in UK as a Data Protection Act. And we got the PCI DSS. PCI DSS is for payments, is for the financial industry. Not only financial, I got to correct that. Any industry that uses cards as a payment system or as an instrument for transaction. When I mean card, transaction card, like credit card, debit card, and this card might be physical or might be virtual. As long as card, the use of card is an instrument for transaction processing, then you fall within the ambit of complying or the ambit of PCI DSS, Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, PCI DSS. Now, the era of conducting operations, carrying out business without any law backing it up has come and gone. I hope you get that. Since the late 20th century, mid-90s into the late 90s, into the 21st century, we've had this business environment have the need to be regulated as became a necessity. If you go back in time, you'd agree with me, there was a time that we had the likes of Microsoft. I'd like to mention it. The likes of Microsoft become a household name in the IT industry. So powerful. At the time, it was on record that company alone was serving 85% of all computers with the operating system, if not more. Now, such might, that's not just power, such might has to be regulated. We've had such, should we go back in time, in the real estate industry, in the banking sector, finance and banking, in oil and gas, in telecom. There was a time AT&T was the household name when it comes to telecommunication. There was a time, the name is got so much names, in automobile too. So these institutions were so mighty, and they had so much influence. And with that, being private institutions, they have become monopolistic of some sorts. So they need to have them regulated, and not just the high and mighty in the industry, but the entire industry regulated, because an institution with a niche, a small niche in industry, might just skyrocket and evolve into a mighty one in the industry. So as a result, industries from transportation to tech to oil and gas, to telecom, to finance, the need to have them regulated became necessary. It was due to poor regulation or lack of compliance, poor compliance to regulation, that led to the rise and fall of big names like Enron. If you go back in time, you know the story, you know the history from the mid-90s to the first decade in this millennium. There were institutions so mighty whose fall, some industries whose fall had a global impact. So to address this, the need for regulation became a necessity, not because there were no regulations, but to stiffen regulations became necessary. And cybersecurity, you would agree with me that hardly would you run a business today. Did I say a business? Hardly would you run an organization today without having to do with the internet. The internet is no longer that distant technology to businesses and lives. The internet has become sequel to power. There is no day you would not need to use power, electricity, whether in stored form or that's DC or in what? In alternate form. You find the need to use electricity every day. Even if you are in the jungle, you will still want to use electricity. You agree with me? Okay, so the internet has the same relevance to our corporate and individual existence, like electricity, like air, like food, like drink. Internet has taken its rightful place as a necessity in our corporate and individual lives. So with that in place, the need to regulate that part of our lives has become a necessity, not just for us as individuals who now have that digital life on the internet, but as corporate entities in whose custody are you and I's personal information, personal data. And lastly on that, data is the currency of this age. You got to recognize that. And secondly, how to use it is another skill set. So if data is the currency of this age, though not a fiduciary note, then why don't we regulate the protection of that currency? I hope you're getting it. Why don't we regulate it? So regulating it comes on, one part of this regulation is what we want to see now, and the need to adhere to such regulation. That is what compliance in cybersecurity addresses. So let's move on. There's a why critical for risk mitigation, operational integrity, and maintaining customer trust. Compliance requires continuous efforts and can be challenging to achieve. When we say compliance, compliance with internal stipulations or internal requirements in form of policies, procedures, guidelines, and external requirements in form of laws, regulations, standards, and framework. Complying with them is not one-off. It's a continuum. So there has to be a system that must be set up to ensure continued compliance with these specifics or stipulations. Okay. Now, the compliance landscape, cybersecurity compliance. We're talking about the law, the regulations and standards that organizations must adhere to in order to operate technically within the ambit of the law, in order to carry out their technical operations legally and ethically. You would agree with me that, it's no longer news that some institutions abuse what clients or customer data. It's no longer news. You will also agree with me that there has been increasing cases of cyber attacks leading to data leakage, leading to compromise, leading to loss of confidential data. Do not forget, I said earlier, that data is the currency of this age. Therefore, why do attackers go after data after compromising a system? Why do you think hackers, after hacking or intruding forcefully into an organization's corporate system, their corporate network, they go after data? Why don't they stop after hacking into the network? Why don't they stop? Have you given it a thought? If you have not, please give it a thought. Or I'm going to talk about it. Why? Why don't they just compromise your network and stop? Why don't they just hack into it and stop? And come outside to say, we have successfully hacked ABC's network. Why do they go on to exfiltrate data? It means they know the worth of data. They know the might of data. They know the value of data. As a matter of fact, they are merchants of data. So they go after your data and merchandise it and commercialize it. Sometimes they use such data directly for their personal gains. In other instances, they sell such data out to those who can use it and then translate money or crypto for them. There's also personal gain. So if hackers know the worth of data, you should also know its worth and assign security appropriately to it. But you don't just assign this security based on hunches or guesses or what you think you deem fit or good. There are laws, regulations. You may need to look inward. When I mean inward, where you currently reside. You might need to look inward to identify local laws that were legislated for this purpose, for data protection or cybersecurity purpose. It is not a static entity. That is the compliance landscape. That is the set of laws, regulations, and standards that organizations are meant to adhere to. That landscape is not static, it's dynamic. The operating environment of businesses constantly changes. market forces, government regulations, and so on and so forth. So the need for effective compliance is crucial so businesses can avoid penalties. We got this instance in law, comply or explain. In some other instances in law, there is no room for explain. Just do what? Just comply. It's either you comply or you are penalized. Yes, we have the instance of comply or explain, or no need for explain. Did you comply? Yes. Oh no, you did not. Then that's the penalty. So in order to avoid penalties, in order to avoid loss of business reputation and trust, what do? We institute compliance practice. Compliance is a practice as it is an integral part of our corporate existence. It is an integral part of our corporate practices. Understanding the landscape includes one, compliance regulations. They vary from industry to industry. So in order to understand it, you got to know the laws regulating the industry where you operate or the sub-industry where your institution operates. Also, two, compliance is not a one-time event. Talked about this. It's a continuum. It's an ongoing process. What do? You operationalize it. And number three, compliance requires collaborative efforts. So it is not the work of the compliance department alone. Toyin, she's the process owner in compliance department. She has a team. Let's leave it to them to no. The days of leaving things to a function like risk management to risk management function, compliance to compliance to legal. Some institutions call it the legal function or legal department. The days of leaving it to them are come and gone. Organizations are so nucleated, so integrated, so should they be if they are not. Operations should be so nucleated into each other, integrated into each other, that compliance becomes an integrity across board. Then, number four, compliance requires a culture of ethical behavior. I talked about exploring opportunities ethically. That when you explore opportunities to the disadvantage or harm of another party, you are being unethical. I mentioned this yesterday. You remember, those of you remember very well. I said this yesterday. So, compliance, we keep the institution operating legally and ethically. I hope you get that. So let's continue with this while we look at key aspects within the compliance landscape. There are regulatory frameworks like anti-money laundering. Anti-money laundering has become an integral part of the financial industry. If you operate in banking and even insurance, and I mean, it's not just, it used to be a banking regulation, but it's gone beyond banking, insurance, financial industry, and even beyond the financial industry, amongst governments. Yes, in the political arm, political sector, I mean, public life or public sector, public administration of some countries, some nations, some states, we have anti-money laundering as a regulation. So it is a key aspect of the compliance landscape. We got industry-specific requirements. Some industries have specific requirements that must be met by players within the industry. Also, evolving technologies are critical aspects or key aspects of the compliance landscape. Why? Technology keeps evolving. We now have AI as part of both industry life and what? Personal lives. Blockchain. These are inclusion. These were technologies that were in their novel, they were in part of our existence some years back. But today, in less than 10 years, of their introduction or evolution, they become a critical aspect. This would also affect the compliance landscape. Focus on transparency and accountability, that institutions must be transparent in their dealings and accountable for their actions. This informs compliance too. Proactive approach. Institutions must be adaptive, not just reactive. To this institution, because of the ever dynamic or changing business environment, institutions got to be more proactive than reactive. This also will inform or direct their adherence to laws, regulations, and other stipulations and requirements. Leadership is a critical aspect of the compliance landscape. There has to be leadership commitments to compliance. The institution does not exist by itself and for itself. There are persons like you and I who occupy leadership offices. Who are the decision makers of that institution. So they must be in the know about compliance and institutionalize it, operationalize it, using necessary policies and procedures. Risk assessment is a critical aspect of compliance. You know why? Because of penalties should the organization fail to comply with an industry requirement or regulation or law. So in order to avoid such penalties, we should have risk assessments regularly conducted to identify areas of non-compliance or defects, deficiencies, or what? Vulnerabilities. Should you allow threats to exploit your organization's system, it can lead to non-compliance. In fact, in some nations of the world, the fact that your network or your digital system, computing space was hacked and it was successful, you're going to pay penalty for it. Yes, the fact that your system was hacked and it was compromised, you're going to pay penalty for it. Yes. For instance, where there's a case of data leakage, customer credit card, customer names and phone numbers leaked out due to a compromise, you will pay penalty for it. The reason is because there is a law, a standard, an issuance, or a requirement that supposedly your organization did not comply with. So you will be fined. Training and communication to keep our personnel up to date, knowledge-wise, standard-wise, professional-wise. They need to continually train. I talked about this yesterday in yesterday's class. They need to continually train and communicate compliance requirements from time to time to personnel who are the one operating the system. It's part of the landscape. What you should know about compliance, oversight and monitoring is also a necessity. There should be management structure that provide oversight in of compliance. So we should have a compliance function, a compliance department, a team, if not a department as a function, but should have a team carrying out compliance responsibility, which will include monitoring, compliance audits, and the likes. Okay, as part of the compliance landscape, we got cybersecurity laws. For instance, no, of course, I want to believe you know a law to be a what? An issuance, a legislation from government that must be complied with. Otherwise, you set the penalties. Such laws on the global scale or international, one of such laws is the General Data Protection Regulation. This is a data privacy law obtainable in Europe. We got the Data Protection Act obtainable in the UK. We got the HIPAA Act obtainable in the US. We got the California Consumer Privacy Act, like you can find in the name, you already know where that is, in the state of California, in the US. Then we got the Cyber Crimes Prohibition Prevention Acts obtainable in Nigeria, though recently amended. Then we got cybersecurity regulations, such as what? Network and Information Systems Directive. Also, GDPR comes there as a regulation. These are specific rules and guidelines also issued by government or by through its agencies and regulatory bodies. Then we got standards. You find an example of you find an example in ISO IC 27001, also called Information Security Management System. We got the Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard for any industry from financial to non-financial that uses card, be it physical card or virtual card, for as an instrument for transaction processing. These three define the world of compliance, the compliance landscape. We got the 3 C's in compliance: communication, the need to clearly communicate compliance requirements, and also provide supporting evidence that would define our level of compliance to laws, standards, and regulations is one of the C's in compliance. Communication, confirmation, maintaining records of events and transactions, and reviewing management reports to confirm compliance. You know, at the point we talked about leadership in the compliance landscape, right? So there has to be what? Records that show leadership commitment, leadership deliberate commitment to compliance. As I speak, I want to believe some of you would remember cases of non-compliance and the penalties the organization was set by the regulators of that industry for not complying. I want to believe some of you are remembering now, it's coming to mind, that yes, we accept this, we accept. That's to tell you the need or the necessity to operationalize and institutionalize compliance. And how do you do that? You use standard operating procedures or programs to implement compliance. Then correction, taking corrective action when non-compliance is identified, is a critical aspect or one of the C's in compliance. Our organization was penalized for non-compliance for last year's financial year or operating year for 2024. We're in 2025, and this is August. We're almost closing the 3rd quarter of the year. Should we remain the way we were last year and also get set when the regulators come auditing our institution? No. So what do? We implement corrective measures so we can be on track and align with the requirements of a regulation, a law, a standard, or a framework, as the case might be. So that's the end to compliance.